Welcome to a new season of the Strive 365 podcast, where I, Gareth Turnbull, speak each week with experienced former or current athletes, coaches and parents that have strived their own path from the transition of youth to professional levels in their chosen sport. Here we discover their journeys, learnings and advice to like-minded athletes and coaches, as well as parents who we believe play a pivotal role in the ongoing success of their children's progressions. It is my aim to provide you some tips and insights that will help you on your journey to your next level. We also encourage you to give us a like, share or follow on our various platforms, including our YouTube channel, as well as engage in some of the interactive content which will be new for us this season. Okay, let's go! Declan Edge, welcome along to Strive 365. It's great to see you again.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed that you got hold of me, to be fair, Gareth, and nice to talk to some New Zealanders again.
Yeah, you obviously hiding away in the winter of Sweden, which you were back in New Zealand a few weeks ago. I tried to get hold of you then, but yeah, it's great to see you back in the through the camera lens at least, and in Sweden. How's the Sweden experience going in a real nutshell before we get into the detail of it?
Oh, it's there's a football pyramid here. So it's when I talk about football world, this is real football world. It's very different to New Zealand and Australia, I would presume. Yeah, it's football.
Proper football. I love it.
It's proper football. If you win the league, you go up. If you don't win the league, you're in a relegation battle. And there's consequences for both of those things.
It's something that here in Australia with the A-League, without the relegation, I was having this conversation this week. It's the biggest thing missing from the senior professional teams having to execute and having to get the club model completely right from bottom to top, or else you just see teams at the minute go through the motions, save money on players, and because they know there's no relegation, so there's no threat. We'll just start again in the new year.
Yeah, but based on that, then the A-League should be way more entertaining than it is. Teams should be way more attractive, doing way more riskier things, because the consequences of getting relegated aren't there. So, yeah, I watch the A-League all the time, obviously, with the two New Zealand teams, and obviously the promotion and relegation is huge in real football world. And based on that, the A-League should be coaches should be way more entrepreneurial and creative, I believe.
And that's how I view you, entrepreneurial and creative in terms of a coach within the setting that I grew up. Right, I grew up in New Zealand. I came across you 20 years ago, and it would have been national age group tournament in Napier. You would have had the YBOP 15 or 16 boys. I was with the mainland girls, and then latterly, probably a year or two later, I was playing National League for Canterbury against your then Waikato FC team, and you were very creative. You were, again, no risk of relegation. It was franchise-based model through the summer, and I remember you copping a lot of flack from the so-called footballing public of New Zealand around playing kids. But those kids were Marky Rojas, Chris Wood, to name a few, who have gone on and become our best national team players because they got the opportunity with a forward-thinking coach at a highest level when there was no risk of failure. Is that how and what you tried to bring to the table back then?
Yeah, look, I'm an idealist, really. I just look at things, not how they are, but what they could be. And yeah, I really didn't give a shit, Gareth, about anything. I decided that the player was always the most important thing, and I wanted to create something for them that they could get their teeth into and believe. So I really didn't care too much. I was obviously in a pretty good position in New Zealand, where I had been an international player. I'd been a reasonably good player myself, and so I just felt as though I had some leverage to use, and I just went for it. I said, look, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to look at different ideas and. Yeah, I mean, it just evolved. It evolved as it went along, really. But that was always my starting point. Look, to start, it is I just always believed that what we were doing in football with our young players was just wrong. And over, say, 20, 30 years, I'm sort of now unpacking all that type of stuff and saying, look, I definitely think there's a different way.
Where did that kind of initial opinion come from, and then how did it form into a genuine belief? Like, was it through your own transition from a player to coach, through your own kind of your journey as a player, or seeing the difference from the UK and then being in New Zealand and seeing there were either people thinking there's resource constraints or other constraints, and then you just sort of disagreeing with that? Like, where did that kind of
Yeah, I mean, back from the age of about 14, when some guys turned up from the English FA and put a passing practice on and told us what to do. And I fell out of love with, I was basically like, who were they? And I fell out of love with authority. I didn't enjoy the authority. I didn't enjoy people telling me what to do as a young player. And at that time I didn't know, but I can look back, and I have the photograph, believe it or not, because it was in the paper, of those guys turning up and me like looking up them, a little kid in an England strip, just going like, what are you guys talking about? And I just, I'm not anti the coaches. Obviously, I'm a coach myself. I've gone through the licenses, but again, it's just like, yeah, we missed something really, really deep. And I wanted to find out what they took away from me as a child, as a young player, and what been trying to figure out how to put back into the child, into the players.
did you
If that
feel
makes any sense.
Yeah. Did you feel that you were like a man on an island with that kind of a belief and opinion, or there were others around you, and it became a kind of a group crusade, or was it something that you just sort of took with and ran by yourself?
Nah, of course not. Like, obviously, if you've got the crazy guy dancing in the field, so there's going to be one person that's going to come up and dance with him, and then another might come and dance with him, and then before you know it, you got the 7 or 8 there, and I've got my little cult going. And so there was always people, Gareth, around wherever I've gone that have like understood what I've been trying to do and say, and I've joined.
I remember when I came down and saw you at Ole Academy. I was down working as the national under-17s coach, identifying a couple of players, and I asked you, where did this come from? And I remember you sort of saying, look, I was in Hamilton. There was a great group of kids coming through, but we could do a lot better than what the current system and structure was doing, and we needed to find an environment where we can almost get away from the norm and have the right facility, and kind of build it, and then more will follow, more will come, and somewhere that I can have my own space, and then really refine my techniques and beliefs, and then develop the players the way I think they can be. So yeah, maybe just for those who aren't aware, like, bring us back to that time. What and how did Ole come about in your mind before that became the reality?
Well, Ole was always there before me, by the way, as well. So it was, I didn't. I'm not Ole Football Academy. It was there before me. There was, and again, it was. I mean, I'll talk about it later on as well, about how I think the universe plays a part in this. Your muse. There's like, if you're doing things for the right reason, and obviously, the main reason for me was I had two boys that wanted to play football. Particularly, one of them decided that he didn't want to play golf, that he wanted to play football, and so I had to, like, like all parents, Gareth, I love my child and I love my kids, Joseph and Harry, and obviously they're the most important thing. And I went down that track on, if I love my kids, sorry, if I love my kids, like, how am I going to treat them? What am I going to do? And so we were in Hamilton at the time. I was playing these kids in a league where there was no relegation, and Waikato decided that the results weren't good enough. Which was like, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? And I couldn't get around that. And so I knew my time was coming up. I started to, like, annoy certain people that were stuck in what I call old school football world. We're just like stuck in this. Well, we have to win. We have to win. We have to win. Which is an addiction in itself. And I never enjoyed that in football. I just enjoyed the joyful playing, and what this beautiful game can give to our young people. That was the most important thing. So I knew I was on my way out. And again, this is all synchronicity. Everything happens for a reason. One of my players that was with me for a little bit, sort of went down to Ole for a sort of a trial with the university stuff because they were doing a lot of that at the time. And he basically said to Nate Winkle, that was there at the time, there's this crazy guy up in Hamilton, you should talk to him. And I can remember where I was when Nate rang up and just said, "Look, I'm Nate Winkle. I'm the director of football at down at Ole. Um, I'd like to talk to you." And I said, like, "Yeah, perfect. The timing is great. Come up." He came up to Hamilton to see what we were doing, and obviously we connected quite nicely. The pair of us at that time, him on the business side, myself on the football side, and I just I was getting kicked out of Hamilton at the time. By the way, there was nowhere else to go. And so I said, like, okay, let's move. And one of the stipulations was for me to go down to Ole was that I took all my players with me. And so Nate had to make the commitment to take like 16 players from Hamilton and look after me and look after all of them because I wasn't going to leave anybody behind. All of the guys that wanted to come, I they all came down with me, and like half a dozen of them ended up in US universities, and half the other, obviously some of the other players are now playing in the big leagues in Europe. So I ended up going down there, and I basically said to Nate, "Look, you've got this amazing facility, but you have no idea what you're doing. I have no facility, but I got a fair idea what I'm doing. Let's get to work. Let's do some stuff." And I think I was at Ole for about 6 or 7 years, and had the privilege to work with some amazing young men and young women as they came through the academy, but both coaches and players.
So maybe if we just go back to the 16 or so kids working in Hamilton, right? So the likes of Ryan Thomas, who's playing in Holland, been there for a number of years. Tyler Boyd, who went on and got capped by the US soccer team. What were you doing in Hamilton before the Ole transition with those 16 kids? Obviously the how is because, or why is because you felt you could do things better. But what actually were you doing? Or maybe what were you not doing that they were previously exposed to?
I mean, you'd probably have to ask them that, but over the past, I would have asked them myself, like, what was I doing, guys? You talk to me because I got to try and figure it out myself so I can like basically explain it better. And I just think that most of them will just say like that I really cared for them. I was present with them, and I was treating them like my kids. It was very, very important that I don't want to get corny. That like I love them all. There was I got very quickly into a very, very deep connection with them and their parents. That was quite important. But then there was some strict guidelines that I put in place as well. And it was a relationship. It was like, look, these are the things that I'm expecting. These are the things I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you everything that I have. And and it just evolved more than anything else, because there were certainly things that I was doing back then that I'm not doing now. I wouldn't do now. But at that time, I had to do those things. They were quite controversial, maybe sometimes. But that for me was always a learning process all the time. It was like, I'm going to do something. Did that work? No, it didn't. Okay, let's get rid of it. Let's not do that anymore. Let's go and do something else. And so it was all trial and error. That's what I say to a lot of young coaches is like, you can't come and ask me what to do. Like I can tell you what I did, but you've got to do it yourself, and you've got to, it's a continual learning process for yourself. So if you want to be a good coach and you're young, you got to invest 20, 30 years in this. And so like, I'm not going to like talk too much about what I did back there, because some of it wasn't probably very nice and very kind. But I had to do those things to realize that those things don't work.
I think it'd be great to actually find out, without going into all the detail, like what are one or two of these things to, if I'm still quite young, all right, hopefully, in my early 40s, but when I was 25, I'm trialing things out myself to find out what works, what doesn't work. And I'd do things differently now than what I would have done 15 years ago. A big part of this sort of platform is for young coaches listening to people like yourself to kind of go, avoid these things. This will save you 5 years of time. Or, my opinion on that is you should still go through an experience and find out that they don't work for yourself. But is there any of those sort of things that you can think back that you can share that, you now know or you believe are not the right ones to be trialing out?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I'm talking to young coaches now. Like look, what I think that I did very, very well from a very, very early age as a coach was like I had I had to define what I thought the game was. Like I'd have a clear definition of like this is what I think football is, and I wish that I've got that earlier and clearer to myself, because there was lots of things I was doing that was like, what the hell was I doing? That, like, looking back, I was like, well, what a waste of time. That wasn't, looking now in my definition of the game, that didn't tick those boxes. And so if they don't tick those boxes, what am I doing it? Why am I doing that? Am I killing space, or have I picked it up from somebody else that I like, and I think it's visually quite good, but it doesn't tick these boxes. So defining the game, what is the game to you, was super important. I think that's super important, and have a clear understanding of what the game is and what the game is not. And then obviously, with young players, like, surely you want to be doing the things that are part of, like, are the game. You don't want to be doing things that like are not part of the game. And I think, meeting Todd Beam, I think that was very good at when he came over to Ole at that time, just to clarify some of those things for me. Todd was very good at, like, again, using words and putting things into words, into sentences. And so that, like, people like that were good for me at that time to, like, clarify myself. Is like, okay, it's clearly these 3 or 4 things. So, as I was working with young coaches in New Zealand and at Ole at the time, is like, look, if it doesn't tick these boxes, then what are you doing? Because this is not my definition, or this is not definition of football. So that first, I think that, and I don't think that's spoken about very much at the licenses. And again, we get into too much of the other stuff. It's a clear stuff on that. Leading from that, from the definition of the game, then it's like you're working with people. These are human beings, and now you have to look at, well, how do human beings operate? When do we do well? When are we ready to learn? How do we learn? And that, that evolves around lots of different things. I can bring up Rudolf Steiner and Montessori teachings and all those type of things. Is like, the human being, as we are people, will definitely learn in certain environments in a playful place versus not a playful place. And then I can open up the whole universe now and go, look, what are the forces that are fundamental in how the universe works? Because we're part of that. We're part of this huge thing. And so, like, it's like, again, the journey, I think, of football coaches is trying to, like, figure out all those things and put them together, because they are all truthful things, and then figure out, well, what would that look like if I did all those things in a game of football? Because I don't want to get into math. I don't want to get into all the scientific stuff. But I have some ideas and all those things, but I got a fair idea what that would look like inside a football game. And so for young coaches, that's the journey. It's like trying to figure out your values, all those things. And I don't think there's a real, like I say to the young players, I don't think you can skip a lot of those things. You have to go through those. It's like, I think I would have used that. We spoke about that conference up in Auckland. I would have definitely used the snakes and ladders at that time, where, you don't want to go up a ladder, because if you go up a ladder, you get promoted too soon, or things happen for you too soon. You're going to land on a snake, and the snake brings you back down. And so you're best to just go, like, one step at a time, do your work, turn up, get on the grass, experiment, talk to good people, but have a clear definition of what is the game, and what do young players individually need to be able to do to survive and live and thrive in that game.
Couple points we'll come back to, but just on that journey piece, I remember when I came and saw you at Ole, it was you were big in around the 10,000 hour rule, and all the players at the time were working towards their 10,000 hours. They had a journal, and they were working again step by step, rather than finding these magic pills or these ladders to circumvent the process. Where do you see the 10,000 hour rule now? Is it something that is still a cornerstone of your developmental beliefs, or you've moved on?
Yeah, for sure. Like, that 10,000 hours is hard work, but like, I want to bring, what I've learned is like that 10,000 hours is irrelevant, really, in relation to when you've got a young player that's just intrinsically motivated to play this game. So the 10,000 hours just become quite irrelevant. In fact, the players who are intrinsically motivated, like you got to manage that 10,000 hours for them, because they're going to blow it apart in the first week. And so again, if you're understanding how the human being works, is you don't want to do it in the first week. You've got to like calm them down actually and like chill them out. And that opens up the other door of the importance of the nervous system and how that works inside a human being. So the 10,000 hours was really just a nice little word that Ericsson brought. It's, a paper that he did, obviously, that, in certain things works, you have to do. But really, it's another word for like you've got to be, it's hard work. But again, the players that I know that have done well, and I've got, good evidence of the players that have done well, that was intrinsic. That was just like, they were just doing it. They just loved it. And then it was like putting them in a place where they were loving this. And my job was to make it like just joyful, just sheer joy and happiness. Because then I'm starting to click the parts of the brain where I'm getting some flow state going on with these guys and girls.
Yeah, we're talking kind of 10, maybe 12 years ago from now. So me walking into your environment was probably one of the first, probably the second after APA Football Academy in Lincoln, where you got the centralized group of players, talented players, working on their own vision of philosophy of football. But it's more than just the sport piece. So we spoke about 10,000 hours. You spoke about the nervous system. I remember quite clearly, you speaking about cold immersion, about breath work. And these were, for me, back then, topics that I hadn't really come across, certainly as a player or an athlete. So they were really, eye-opening for me to see and for you to kind of explain. And that linked to the playful play or the play piece as well. So I'm keen to know personally from, 12 years ago, where play and cold immersion and breath work and 10,000 hours, is that something that still resonates strongly with you now with, your 10 years of additional experience when speaking to younger players or program leads?
Yeah, look, again, if I relate it back to football, it's like, so if I said to you that in the last, since I've been here in the last 7 years, obviously, and there's a lot of better stuff that we're doing here than I was doing back in New Zealand. If I said to you that we don't have any injuries, if I say to you that I haven't had any ACL injuries or groin strains or hamstring injuries in my playing squad for 7 years, if I say that the players at Torslanda play more minutes than just about any other players in Swedish football, if I say that, I can go through a whole season just using only 16 players and everybody is fit and healthy year in, year out, year in, year out, then we're doing something else. And it is that deep connection with the nervous system and understanding breath work and the role that plays in bringing back these players back to homeostasis. The importance, like everything is interconnected. And so if I have a look at defining the game, I don't do anything in isolation. So if I look at then, well, the player is part of the game. And again, I don't do anything in isolation. So breath work, going like not so much going to the gym, but like working on power and strength at the gym. Like we're not doing too much of that stuff. It must be linked back to the human body. And so breath, like here in Sweden now, if I'm introducing myself to people from Torslanda, they'll normally say that's the New Zealand guy that does the breath work and throws his players into the North Sea. And we do those things, and certainly breath work, yoga nidra. Most of our players are very comfortable in doing that. I work with a very good friend out of Germany, but that does what they call VGT, which is basically a breath work practice to like draw out trauma, to calm down the player, to put them into a nice place. Where if I want magic to appear, it's only going to appear in those states. And so like I've got to do as much as I can. If I want to play, make a player good in passing, I'm going to do a 6v2 and I might do the 6v2 every day. And I might do it for 10 years with them. So they're going to improve. If I want to bring this nervous system back to neutral homeostasis, I've got to do these things every day with these players or as often as possible. And over a period of time, like going to the gym makes you big muscles. If you're doing breath work often and understanding the power of that, you'll change. And what you're doing, I'm observing now that I've been working with players now for like 10, 15 years is like, these are different players now than they were, say, 5 or 6 years ago. And so it's huge for us right now. For me right now, that's the sort of like I mean, I don't want to be telling too many people about it. Is like, that's the secret, is this ability to calm. Like, these are young athletes, by the way. I mean, I'm dealing with young men and women. You'll be the same. These are young people, and they've been, they've got lots of problems in their lives around just growing up anyway. But now you throw social media and TikTok and all that type of stuff in there. You're working with these kids that are like stressed out and very anxious, and they're trying to get away from that. And you suddenly bring them to football training, and you're like asking them to do certain things that stress them out even more. We don't want to do that. We're going the opposite way.
Let's bring in Torslanda. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's bring that into, so I guess, the timeline. So this was about when you left to Sweden. I left probably to Melbourne not too long after. So maybe just, for certainly the New Zealand audience listening, like, how did that come about? What was the objectives when you first went? And maybe fill us in on kind of the role that you play there now before we get into some of the nitty gritty.
I mean, it was almost the same as this is what happens, because you can always look, when you get older, you can look back. It's difficult to look at the present, in the present, and see it for the reason. But it was the same as moving away from Hamilton. It was like, I'd done my time at Ole. That was time to move on. Obviously, there was lots of players now starting to move into Europe. I'd been backwards and forwards to Europe a couple of times. And I would have probably said to the staff at Ole sometime, look, we need to get into Europe. We need to expand. We need to go and take this philosophy. Let's go and see if we can figure out how to do that in Europe. And, again, the universe conspired to help us, where Dan Keek turned up, obviously an ex-Ole player, come through before my time. He was in Sweden. I played many years here, 7 or 8 years in the top divisions here, and he was looking to get into coaching. I think he'd been to see Todd Bean. I'm not too sure whether the connection was, but Dan obviously came back to Ole, saw what we were doing. And I probably, I can't probably remember. I probably said to him as well, is like, Dan, like, find us a team in New Zealand, in Europe that we can get into and use. And he was in this area at the time. So Torslanda is about 15, 20 minutes away from Gothenburg. And he said, okay, I'll go and do it. And I mean, the synchronicities are weird. Is like, he found this club called Torslanda that he said, like, they're in Div 2, they're struggling, they're paying their players money, they can't afford to keep this going. The club's in a bit of strife. It's a perfect club to get into. And then Ben Sippler, obviously, that was one of my coaches at the time, had actually played for Torslanda years ago, or before, coming out of the MLS, and he'd been there for half a season. And so it was like, holy shit, this is the place. There's a couple of little ticks here. So I flew over, checked the place out, and just went like, this is perfect, let's do it. And so we just set the cogs and all the wheels moving to get me out there with like half a dozen other players, and to, like, certainly not using the word take over the club, but like to a certain extent, like, help the club in developing its young players at the same time as a base. Initially, it was a base for New Zealand players that we thought, like, a little bit like the players, the whisperers, the best players were always taken. They play for the 17s, the 20s, the big guys that, the shouters that appear very easy. But there was, I've always felt as though there was lots of whisperers that took some time. Like Liam Gilling is a perfect example now at Auckland. That's taken some time to come through. And I just thought, look, it's super difficult to get into Europe as it is. I'd experienced that with Harry and with Ryan and with others. But what happens if having a base where New Zealanders can come, be met at the airport by New Zealanders, come and chill out, relax a little bit, and like, figure out whether this is the place for you? And I thought, this is a great little place to do that. So we set it up.
Sorry, I was just going to say, is it still a path for Kiwi players to go, or has that kind of moved on from?
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. Like, I don't check like those things. Like nothing is really personal. So I haven't. Nothing's personal. No, like, I am a New Zealander. I love New Zealand, and I have an appreciation for New Zealand players. I'd like to help my like, New Zealand is my village, and so yeah, I'm always open to helping New Zealand players. We have, at the moment, I think we have a couple of players in the next couple of weeks coming over. I think Ollie Pickering maybe, and Daniel Atkinson. So what we do is we pick them up at the airport and we'll try and look after them while they experience, firstly the cold of Europe. At the same time, is like proper football world. Like there's good here in Sweden. Everybody play. All football players, they all play. They're all good. So yeah, it's a nice little transitional place for them, and it's worked very well over the last, say, 6 or 7 years.
What part of the pyramid are you currently in?
Well, you have Allsvenskan, which is the top league. That's Malmo. Then you have Superettan, which is the league below, like the championship. And then you have they're the two leagues that get paid by the TV. So that's where the money is. And then we're underneath that. So we're in the first of the. So there's Etten South and there's Etten North. So Sweden split it up because it's a big country. Jeez, it's a long country. And we're in those two leagues, we're classed as a professional club. We play the players, and we have to abide by all the rules of a professional team. And we had, we got in there last year, and we had our first season in Etten.
Is the aim to move up the pyramid? Like, is it now a results business for you, or is it about trying to provide these players something a bit different and then see where they go on their own journey to sort of different leagues or bigger clubs? How do you?
Yeah, all of that, because there's not one fit for any player. Some players are very ambitious and want to go on very quickly. Some players are very happy in, like, we get this right. We don't do anything the same as anybody else. We are the opposite. I mean, I apply backwards law just about to everything that we do. So if most like I've just finished my A license over here as well, and there's a way of doing things here in Sweden, the same as there in New Zealand. When I watch the A-League teams as well, there's obviously a way of doing things in the A-League, because like just about everybody's playing the bloody same. We are the complete opposite. So I'm and I'm the complete opposite in everything. So if it's like this is the way to do it, like we're not doing it that way. We'll do it the opposite. And the funny thing is it bloody works, and it works every fucking single time, and it works with every single person.
So is that based on you wanting to create this internal conflict, or is it because you've figured out some things through your last 20 years of going down your own road and not worrying about what the norms are, and you're getting the buy-in from the players? So without giving away all the secret sauce, how or why are we at this point?
Because like Gareth is like, I very quickly understood that the educational system is broken. The pharmaceutical industry is broken. The health industry is broken. Couldn't find the banking system is broken. Like how we're supposed to live as communities is not. There's a disconnect. And I only know football. I don't know politics. I don't know all that type of stuff. I only know football, and I try to apply some like fundamental forces in what we are as human beings and how we operate and how we have fun and how we connect. And when I looked at football world, and that's not going on. Like football world is it's like, I mean, I use the word all the time. Like I work in a complex theory system where like there's no telling. I mean, the best analogy I can use, Elon Musk actually brought it up recently, and he uses the analogy of East Germany and West Germany when the Berlin Wall was up. Remember, the Berlin Wall was up and it was a wall, but really on the map it was just a line. That's all it was. And you could have like one brother this side of the line and another brother on this side of the line. And in the 20, 30 years while these two countries were broken, one side of the wall had BMWs, Audis, Porsches, Mercedes, and the other side of the wall had a cardboard box with 4 wheels that took 30 fucking years to get. One system, another system. And I operate only in, and I'm the guardian now of complex theory system, where we don't tell the players what to do. we're just like gardeners. We just guide. We just like there's not beautiful saying is that the wind teaches the trees how to dance. I have lots of tattoos on my arm, basically around. I see the young players already as geniuses. You'll see lots of times, I'm sure you've experienced it. You'll see 11, 12, 13-year-old boys and girls playing, and you'll go, like, they're amazing. It's just unreal. Watch these guys play. Just have a look to see what they're doing, how they move, how they're interacting with each other. And then you get them at like the first team coach might get them at 18, 19 and say, well, what the fuck happened to those kids? And that's where I say the coaches come in, and we are starting to tell these geniuses already how to do things based on a broken system. And so I wanted to chat, so I jumped into another system, which is stop telling these kids what to do. They already know. Your job is to basically, if I can, which I'll say very often to all my players, please don't let me get in the way of you enjoying the game and playing in this free space. Like we might call our academy the kindergarten, which is children learning with fun. And so, and now we're talking, and if we talk about as they get a bit older, they come out of the kindergarten with just this beautiful place to play, but there's a nice little fence around it so the kids don't run off and get knocked over by a car. Then, the next word for our academy is let's go to the playground. And so we're constantly just in this playful state. And what I've observed over 20 years or so, if you can get these young geniuses, which they already are, and you can keep them in this beautiful play state, which is there before they go to bloody school, which starts at 9 o'clock and finishes at 3, and you got to do history at 9:30 and do as you're told and line up. If I can get them out of that place and put them back into this joyful place, magic appears. And, and I'm looking at some of these kids, and I've got Dan next to me and I've got Zeleziarne next to me, and we're just going who told them that? What's going on? How did that appear? And it was already there. We're just allowing it to come through.
So without maybe saying, we can tell us, I'd love to know as much as you're prepared to share, maybe what you do, or maybe it's what you don't do compared to the normal.
100%. Yeah. So if I said to you that trainings are the same all the time, so this is going against everything as well. There's change. I'll give you an example. I might get a coach comes out to Sweden, they might observe things and they go, yeah, okay, I've got the 6v2 rondo. And okay, good, off you go. And they'll come back and might go and see them in 6 months' time. And they'll go, look to see what I've added to the 6v2 rondo to make it better. And I'm coming in and going no. I'm trying to figure out how to take things away from my 6v2. And you're adding things, and it's this. So this is this difference between complex system versus a complicated system. We don't do complicated. We do complex. And you'll have heard the football saying, the best players keep things simple. And so it's understanding all those rules, those laws of okay, how do I make things simple? How do I make my life simple? We'll take things away by adding. The coaches then make things very complicated for the players, and the players don't operate in a complicated world because they're thinking too much. And as soon as you're thinking, then you're not in the free place. You're not in the zone. You're not into this place where I want the players to be no thinking, just doing. And if you put them in there enough and you put them in there long enough, you get Marco, Matt, Callum, Eli, Owen, Nando, you get Liam, you get all these guys, you get all these players are just appearing in their own time.
Yeah. How big are you on language? So you spoke about framing the kindergarten and then the playground. Link back to playful and joy. What other kind of language pieces are you using every day?
Language is huge. And one of the reasons that I don't speak Swedish, because I do get into a bit of flack over here, not understanding any Swedish at all. And that's basically around, because I'm still studying English. I'm still trying to figure out all the words and how to use them. And the importance of words, I think, is huge. So there's all the time we're using language as a way of and also not just the words, it's the vibration and the energy. You're talking about working with young kids. Most young kids don't know what you're saying, or they're not really bothered, but they certainly can pick up very quickly, like a little baby does, the vibration, the vibes, the frequency that the mother is talking to them. So huge on that with the young players. But yeah, language is crucial.
What about you? You as a coach, are there things that you are currently wanting to explore, or modify your way of delivery and way of viewing the game, or is it just about refining and even niching down even further to where you are?
No, I mean, I think at the moment it's like, to be fair, I'm actually done a big reversal on that, and I'm going back to the younger coaches. And I'm working with a couple of people over here in Sweden who are like amazing, and trying to talk to them about what are you doing to get this group of players like this, which I'm observing. That's tremendous. That's very, very good. What are you doing? So I'm almost flicking around a little bit, Gareth, and going back and going can I learn more from the young coaches and some of the issues they're having? And particularly if I see something really, really good, if I see it's all connections, it's all people. It's if I'm seeing coaches connecting with players in a very deep way, quite naturally, I'm probably asking them more questions than they're asking me now.
I was going to lead on to asking you about how you sustain your drive, your energy, because you've been in the coaching space for a while now, but maybe it's linked to that. It's that ongoing curiosity. It's that learning from those who are coming through behind me or after me. Is there anything else that, that you can draw upon that, you're still coaching 30 years on, or you tell me how long you've been doing it for, but that's not an easy, coaching is not an easy profession.
Yeah, because but I'm never it isn't an easy possession thing to do if your values are winning. It's going to kill you. It's the same as the player. If you value coaching as have I won at the weekend? As my team won? As my team lost? As my team won? Win, happy, happy, happy. Loss, sad. That's a fucking very, very up and down road. That's going to burn anybody out. But I'm not interested in that. I'm not doing that. I'm doing improvement. I'm doing learning. Was always at Ole, continuing, never-ending improvement. And so the ups and downs, I don't want to have the ups and downs. I want to I want to be in homeostasis. I want to have a balanced life. I want to be calm. I'm not saying that winning and losing are not part of the game, but that's maybe about 25th on the list of values. Before that, there's way more other values about connection, people, young people, those type of things. So that's what keeps me going, because those things are never ending. And also, I can't get you can't get fired for loving somebody, for caring for somebody, for trying to improve somebody. You don't get fired for those. I mean, the idiots can fire you. The fucking people that have got jobs that were given to them because they behaved and said the right things. So I just jumped again, same as the players. I've just jumped out of that world, Gareth, and gone I'm not part of that. I don't want to do that. That's not what I do. And so because somebody said that to me the other day as well, is how do you keep going? You got great energy, and I go yeah, well, no, I haven't. It's just it's certainly not a forced thing. My values are we've had to work hard with those. We again, the whole how we play here in Torslanda is just based on some values, not on winning and losing. And if you get that right, you end up winning more games anyway, because the good players make good teams, and good teams win football matches.
I want to bring in Harry and your son, one of your sons, and even Jesse, your nephew, right? So two relatives who have gone fairly well in their footballing or sporting journey. But I think, it's probably not fair, and you probably wouldn't want to gloss over, you spoke about the 16 son-like figures you had back in Hamilton, and probably the kids that you work with now, and even at Ole. So you said you treat them all like your children anyway. But how I guess, speaking now to parents, because the link I'm trying to draw is you have some blood that have gone through this youth development journey, as well as being a dad, as well as being the coach. So what areas are parents that you've seen through your experience really helpful for the development of their kids, as much as those that create hindrance and create roadblocks and create problems and delay this this path for the kids?
I mean, I don't think there is an answer to that, because you'll have some very, very demanding parents, and child will do well. You'll have some very demanding parents, and player doesn't do well. You'll have some parents who like you hardly see, and child will do well. And then you'll see some parents that don't care also, and child doesn't do good. So I don't think there's an answer to that, and I don't think everybody should be trying to solve that. I just think it's a system issue, and it's what system the parents decide to jump into, and for those and for what reason. Look, like that's a really, really tough one, Gareth, because like again, I don't think you can say, well, the parent has to behave like this. At the end of the day, I think I was listening to Patrick Harrington the other day, and he was talking about young golfers and what parents should do with young golfers. And I think he got it, like encourage, listen to your kids, what they want to do. If they don't want to leave training, that's a good sign. If they're already packed, like making a sandwich, you're making a cup of coffee for you in the flask before going to training, that's a good sign that he or she wants to be there. At birthdays and Christmas, if they're like giving you signs that this is what they like to do, like for Christmas every year was a football and a football strip, probably the same as yourself. It was intrinsic. As a parent, I need to be picking those things up, and I need to see the game. Like football. I'm not a big fan of football world. We play what we call guerrilla football. We're anti the system, and so as a parent, I need to understand that the game of football is just a game, and it's a fantastic game that allows your young people to develop relationships with themselves and other people. They understand losing and winning and all that type of stuff. And I think, as a parent, if I can like disconnect from that and allow my child to go into that place on their own and support them as much as I can, be there, be present, be there, like watching, I can watch, I can clap. But I think Patrick talks about, but I'm going to go and buy, I'm going to have a Coca-Cola, or I'm going to go and have an ice cream with them after training, and I'm going to sit with them. And so they start connecting this game with some good times with the parents. If you're not doing that, and if the child's now associating the game with dad's going to tell me off, or I've got a lecture in the car afterwards, or he's not talking to me afterwards, the child also connects the game now with negative thoughts. And it's a game. If you want to understand what the game, it's a game, it's a finite thing. But again, it's like a societal problem. It's parents, power. My son is at this academy, my son's at this academy. It's the prestige of that. That's what parents love. That's why they buy new cars. That's why they go and buy the second house. It's just this wrong game that I think society's playing, and we've lost a deep connection with what's really, really important. And again, the only way you can do that with a coach or in academies or clubs is to like bring back true values to your organization that you're ever with. And if anybody ever says, like I do know, like there's clubs now talking about, it's all about winning, like that's a doomed place. As soon as winning is the most important thing in any club or any academy or any young players, you're in big trouble. Because like winning is not good, and the chasing of winning is not good, and there's way more important values than those things. And and it's stupid as well. It's like you got 16, like when I talked to Etienne again this year, there's 16 teams in Etienne. One team's going to win. Does that mean all the other 15 teams are losers? Like, it's just stupid. So with parents, it's just like it's really, really difficult for the parents, because they've been stuck in this world for a long time, Gareth. They've gone to school, did you pass your exam? Yes. Then they get a job, and have you been promoted? So just, I don't know, I don't swear too much, but it's just a fucked up system. And if that parent takes that into this child world, the child's going to suffer as well. So we try we try to work with our parents here in, again, calming them down and saying, like asking them silly questions is like, you played a team 2 years ago on the 5th of January, 6 years ago, what was the result? And they'll go, I can't remember. And I said, exactly. But what you will remember is like the ice cream or the time after with your pet. Like back in New Zealand, I'll say to a lot of the guys, what was the best thing about playing at Melville? And they'll say, stopping at McDonald's on the way home at Bombay Hills. And I'll go, really? And they go, yeah. And I'm like, so they associated that time at McDonald's with each other with football. And so if the parent can like figure those things out in this stupid system that we have in developing players through hierarchy, moving up, and if you can protect your kid that, and they're supposed to do well, they'll find a way. You'll find a way for them.
What about parents with coaches or coaches with parents? So what advice, what should they steer away from? How much interaction should they be striving to have? Equally, you can be speaking to coaches about this. How much should you be bringing your parents along the journey? I guess the parent-coach piece as opposed to, say, parent and athlete piece.
Well, I mean, just bring it back to normal world. Is how involved are the parents in their kids' history lesson class? Like, do the parents go to the school and tell the history teacher, you need to let me know what you're doing all the time in history so I can like confirm whether it's good or not?
Definitely not.
But it goes on in football world. And so it goes on. It doesn't go on in tennis and others, like in golf as well. Is like, if I sent my, not as much, but like I just think that the system is broken. I just think we were allowed certain things, and I think again it's because this prestige of football. It's the game that everybody wants to play. Obviously, boys and girls, particularly the boys. Like I work with the girls here as well. The girls' parents are a lot different. Like I've learned so much from working. Like I've been working with the girls here for about 6 years with the first team girls as well. So I take men and the women's team at the same time. And I've learned so much from young girls on how they see the game. And that's changing as well because they're coming into men's football world, which is like, no, don't go there. You don't want to go there. Like you're going to lose this spontaneity, this joyfulness you have for the game, girls. Because the girls are all just about amateur. Like they have this beautiful, they're all amateurs. Professional football has only just started up in the girls' game. But as soon as you shift from the word amateur to professional, that you get into big trouble. Like amateur in Latin is to love. Professional is a definition of like, this is my occupation. This is what I do. And so like, we're trying to encourage our parents to stop chasing this professional stuff, relationship with their kids, and remain them, like to remain in this amateur playful state as long as possible. Parents are like it. We have parent coaches here in Sweden, Gareth. It's a very traditional thing. So besides the big clubs like Malmo and the big clubs, they'll have academies. Gothenburg have academy, and the parents really not allowed too close to them. A little bit like Ole. But here in clubs like Torslanda and most of the clubs here in Sweden, one of the things I like about Sweden is like the 51% remains with the club ownership. I love that idea. So the parent coaches are highly involved here in Torslanda. And they've done it, say, for 20, 30, 40 years a certain way, and to try and then work with those parents to say, well, why do you do that? Well, because my dad did it, my granddad did it, my granddad did it. And, this is the way why we do these things. And yet they're all driving brand new Teslas. Like I'm happy with that analogy that you've used, but you've got to be driving the 1940 fucking Volvo. But you're not. You've upgraded, and now you're doing things better. So the parents are a huge job because, obviously They want to be involved in their young players, and they want to be involved with their young kids. So that's here at Torslanda. It's not a problem. It's like we're trying to connect more with those parents and guide them and give them more information, and working with their kids at the same time as well, to tell the parent coaches what to do, because the kids know. The kids know, and the kids know at school who the best teachers are. So super complex. Like, I'm not going to give you answers on the parent coaches. It's tough because it's all down to emotions, and emotions can like make us do stupid things.
Hey, Dick, I just want to wrap up with a little analogy that I use quite often, which I stole from you, or you shared with a group of coaches, and I use it a fair bit. It's around the golf analogy. So for people listening to this podcast through season 1, they would have heard me refer to it a couple of times. The idea of being a youth developer is to ensure that your player, by the time they reach the 18th green of Augusta and the Nationals, is the analogy that they need to hit a bump and run under a tree with a 6-iron, and they turn to their bag. You make sure that they've got their 6-iron and they know how to do a bump and run, because the last thing you want them to do is get into the pinnacle of their sport and not be able to execute a certain technique or have experienced a situation. I want to know, is that still something that still rings true to you now, or around I guess that's for me a little bit of a systemized approach to make sure that, the driver through the putter, through the distance, through the different types of shots, through having a caddy or not having a caddy, and obviously with football, someone's trying to steal your ball as you're trying to have that particular shot. So that systemized approach to development, does that still ring true to you now, or is it less around that and more around guided discovery? And if they don't have the 6-iron or haven't had a bump and run, maybe they'll find a different solution with a different type of club. And as long as the ball gets to where it needs to get to, then job done. I just want to see how over time that might have shifted in your brain.
Yeah, it would definitely have shifted into the more of the, maybe not a 6-iron, it might be a hybrid. So guided discovery, I think the word that you used is like, there's more of that stuff going on, but there's still a basic thing is like, I'll always use the thing before Facebook, there was MySpace. And what we do say to the player is like, there's if you're looking at a few things, fundamentals, you've got gravity, you've got some forces going on, and the thing that I think all players need to learn is where they are on planet Earth, where they are, where their hips are, where the chest is, where the ribs are, where the chest is, where they are operating on this planet in relation to the ground force, where the ball is, and how the ball is traveling, and the velocity, the speed of it. And they need to be able to travel. They need to be able to have this space around them, which is I call my space. And they are present in that space. And so it's like everybody uses the word focus, get focus. Like, what's that? And to focus, I need to be able to come in and go out, and come in and go out, and then I can get that focus. There she is. And so they need to be operating. They need to learn how to operate in that space all the time in the game. It's collecting data and all that type of stuff. And that needs to be able to be good on. Like at one time I might say, if it's over here, this is your right side, so it's your right foot or your right foot. But it doesn't have to be. You can stretch over and take your left foot if you want to do it. But anything that comes into that space, that needs to be yours. You need to be focused in that space, and at the same time as you're focusing on that space, so anything comes in there, anything that's going on around this space, you are laser. But you're coming in and out all the time as well. Cruyff taught us to always be looking ahead, looking at the. And so I think those elements, that's just a player, that's just the individual player. They need to be able to deal with that. And then what they need to be deal with in the golf analogy is that the golf ball is not standing still. It's not isolated. It's not on its own. There is things that are moving then in this space. That's the opponents. That's the conditions. That's all type of things. And any player that is going to be world class can go into that space and now they're not thinking about it. They're just operating. They're just doing. It's like there's no thought. They're not thinking about doing anything. It's very instinctive. And so I think so. One of the requirements that we're always talking about, and I'm always doing, is like that process of thinking about all those things. You need to get to a stage where you're not thinking anymore. Now, then over that period, over a period of time, boys and girls grow to do the training in that space. There's good movement patterns going on, but they're just this awareness, this adaptability, this self-regulating that's going on inside that space. They have to have that. That then opens up this ceiling of complexity, and it makes that higher. It makes that like, and again, one of the words we don't like is potential. Like, so but that increases that ceiling. So if I see players that are able to do that, like they can do that. Actually, they do that quite good when they're young. They lose it by doing other things, and we want to, like a lot of the work we do with our players, as young players, is we bring them back into that space, that individual space, and at the same time as well, it can't be individual; it has to be in connection with their teammates. So, I think that's it. Like I haven't changed that. I would have changed. It doesn't have to be a 6 sign anymore, Gareth. It can be like if you're allowed to kick it, kick it. I don't give it. Like at the end of the day. Like, who am I to tell somebody what to do something? Otherwise, if I'm telling everybody what to do, would never get the Cruyff turn. That would never, Johan would never have done that if he'd have told, if the coaches would have told him to turn with this way and this way. And we don't want that. Like what the game is missing, and I think Bielsa's brought it up recently. The players who are creative, imaginary, doing what they might call as off the cuff stuff, that's disappearing from our game, and it's really sad. And one of the things that we want to do is to bring that back and allow these players to do the things in when you're standing on the bench or you're in the stand as a fan and you're just going like, holy whoa, and so that's that's not a trained thing, because I think it's already in the players. We just got to make sure that they retain it. And as a football coach, what I do now is I'm the guardian of that. I fight for that. I go to war. I'll get dirty with anybody that I see is trying to take that creativity, that individualism away. That's when I get pissed. It's the theory of everything. It's toe, isn't it? It's like what all the scientists are trying to figure out is the theory of everything. How do you put all these things together in one place and just go, okay, let's just stay in that world?
We could speak for hours, but to try and keep things in a user-friendly podcast, let's draw a line under this conversation for now and move on to the final part, which is quick fire questions. So keen to get your take on a few of these for the audience listening. Pose a question to me to answer.
Have you done things in the past that you could look back and go, oh shit, that wasn't very kind? And if that was the case, and you said, okay, yeah, that's an example where I wasn't very kind, how would you go about resolving that?
Yeah, I definitely, yes would be the answer. I put the desire to win the game where there was a shiny trophy, which 20 years or 15 years down the track doesn't actually mean a hell of a lot. I put that decision ahead of probably a much kinder, longer term decision. So yeah, I've certainly been guilty of that in the past, for sure. Outline a concept or idea that either we've spoken about that you want to reiterate, or something different that maybe coaches listening can go and explore a little bit further and maybe test out in their space.
Yeah. So definition of football, I've spoken about this before. And so basically everything is based around the definition, which is data collecting, decision making, and the execution of the decision that you've made from the data. And if anything that you're doing inside anything does not tick those 3 boxes, don't do it. So if it is not collecting data, if it's not making a decision based on the data you're collecting, and then you're not executing the decision that you've made based on data, you are not in football world. You're somewhere else. And why the hell? And if we don't want to overtrain the players, particularly as they get a little bit older, why the hell would you want to be wasting 1 minute in that precious time when you are not in football world? I would not bring a tennis racket and tennis balls to a training session and get my players to play tennis. So why? Because tennis is not football. So again, going back to always the odd question, and everybody's stuffed up with it, is why the fuck would you bring a passing practice into a training football world at any time if their passing practice is not got data collecting and decision making in it? Why would you do that? So stop it immediately. You never do it again. It's a waste of time. And when you get that concept and you understand that, then you can get very creative in your warm-up, your cognitive work, your breath work. All those things start making sense because they equal what you're trying to do, which is play football.
Love it. Love it. Black and white. Perfect. Can you give us a recommendation for a book, movie, podcast that either athletes, parents, or coaches should go and explore?
Yeah, it's a pretty. I'm trying to think of the author. Like one of the most influential books I read is In the Strange Order of Things, and he explains human biology. He explains the theory of like how do we operate, and basically it comes back to this thing of feelings. Like everything starts with feelings. You don't, the old saying, "I think, therefore I am." That's just a fucking big joke. It's I feel first. I feel hungry, and I'm going to think about food. And so, again, with coaching, it comes into the definitions, comes into everything how we operate. It's all based around feelings. And so then, as a football coach, you're not actually coaching football anymore. You're coaching emotions. You're working on emotions, and how people feel about certain things is gonna, at the end of the day, their behaviors and the outcomes are going to come from those feelings. So you need to understand people's feelings and how they feel good, how they feel bad, what they don't like, and what they do. And he starts to explain that in great detail through the evolution of us. Like from when like one of his sayings in his book is, "Behind me, my shadow has 4 legs." Like we've come from evolution, we've come from somewhere. And we get caught up sometimes only looking at in the last 20, 30, 40 years. No, we have to look back millions of years to figure out how we've got to this position. And though all those things play a huge part in developing people, and people play the game of football. And so it's a change.
What was the book title again?
In the Strange Order of Things.
Okay. I'll find the author and put it in the show notes for people.
Yeah, I'll see if I can send some stuff through. I might even have it here with me, or I've left it back in New Zealand. I don't know, but it's a complex book. Like everything else is like a lot of the podcasts I'll be listening to at the moment are around, believe it or not, consciousness, meditating, breath work, sleep. Those are all the other elements that I like. If you listen to a lot of the podcasts now, the people that are high performance is like, you can do all the stuff. I can do all this stuff. I can do data collecting, decision making, all that type of stuff. But if my young people don't understand the power of sleeping and what operates in that space, if I don't understand that as a coach, then I'm wasting all my time doing all these great drills and all these other stuff. If I don't understand the part that nutrition plays, if I don't understand the part that social media is playing, so all the podcasts that are going down those tracks, all coaches who are intrinsically motivated to work with world-class players should be like super open with those things. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing again right now is around consciousness and the reality that we think is operating inside the game, and like how can we change that reality? Well, we have to go and meditate for periods of time and be okay with going to those spaces.
I can give you a magic wand and you get to wave it and change one thing about, let's say, the football world, what is it that you're changing?
Power and greed and corruption at the top. 100 families, what, 100 families control 40 billion people on the planet Earth. There's a few dickheads at FIFA that control football. Those control the federations because they tell them if you don't do this, or if you do this. So it's the corruption. I think the game of football has been taken from us. I would change that. I would get back the game that like I fell in love with. Like I don't like the game anymore. I don't like football. I don't go to watch I don't watch any football. I don't like Premier League football. I don't like the way it's gone. I don't like all the stuff that's going on. But I love the game. So I would like to see if I could figure out. Look, here's another thing. The Premier League players are earning way too much money. I think some of that money should be filtered down. So more into here in Sweden, into Superettan into Ettan into Div 2, Div 2. So now you've got players who are so-called amateurs being maybe paid to play. Maybe I just think there's too much going to the top, Gareth. Like the 1% are just getting too much. And if you look at, I play guerrilla football. If you have a look at the idealistic person that I am, I'm anti all that power at the top, and most of the power at the top hasn't even been earned, just been given to these people by, I don't know, just this corrupt system. So I would if I could, I would change all that.
What's one piece of advice that someone gave you that you can give to us?
Be kind. I'm going back to this kindness. I'll always go back to this kindness. Like fucking at the end of the day, you're going to be on your own, and you're going to be looking back, and I think that it's important that you're able to, like, on my tombstone, I want it to be written, not here's lies Declan that won this cup and won this cup and won this and made all this money. What I want at my tombstone, or when I get buried, is my kids and the people that I love dearly saying, like, yeah, he changed the direction of our lives. Do those things. Don't get caught up in football world about winning. It's like I've written about this, Gareth, as well. It's a really, really addictive drug. And I've been there. You'd have been there. Once you get on this winning thing, winning, you're in big, big, big trouble as a human being. And so, like, I want to change all those things. I want to change. We thought about doing different things to change the game. Like, how could you make the game more entertaining? And then, then I come back to my systems again. It's like, no, don't do anything. The game is beautiful as it is. Just let it play. Just let the players play inside the game. So, yeah, I would change that stuff. I tried to do that in New Zealand football when I said to everybody, I'd fire a lot of you. If I go into New Zealand, I said I'd fire everybody that's right there, and you're all guilty by association, so you can't apply for your jobs, and it needs to be restarted. Now, I didn't mean all that type of stuff. Obviously, I was just trying to make a point. But it's in the country that I love dearly, there needs to be a paradigm shift in how we're looking after our young people in the game. And I don't care what they say. We're doing all those things. They'll say, we're doing that. And I'm saying, like, no, you're not. You're not. You think you are.
I think you've got a lot to still offer football in our home part of the world, Declan. I think maybe there's some time still to come for that. But last couple, give us a quote.
Gareth, on that. Yeah, I've just finished my 50-year business plan. So I agree with you.
How far through are you?
First year of the 50th.
Okay. You got another 49 years in you?
Fuck yeah.
Good stuff. Give us a quote for the week.
Hey. Think through making and doing. not making through thinking and doing.
Like it. And last one, what is the thing you are striving for at the minute?
Calmness, homeostasis, balance, gratification, appreciation, cooperating, having fun, joy, and seeking happiness. Real fluffy stuff, but yeah, we've got to change the way these what people value.
No, I love it. Hey, Declan, this has been a great conversation. I wasn't quite sure where we would head an hour and a half ago, but hopefully for those people who don't know who you are, have now got a little bit of a glimpse into this guy who just sees the world different, who's not impacted by the structures that many of us have to conform to, and can go away and research you and the club and your journey a little bit further. But those who have known you from your time in New Zealand, you can still hear and see through the camera the joy and I'm on this path and I don't really care what other people think so much, because this is what I believe in. This is what makes me happy. Players are loving the environment. They're also gaining some development and furthering their own journeys as well. And you've stayed true to that. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this time. I appreciate that. I wish everything goes all the best with the club. And no doubt we'll see some impact back in New Zealand at some point of your 50-year plan down the track.
Yeah, and just to, obviously to finish, people listening is like, I am very open, like as you'll agree. I replied to your email quite quickly, was very happy to come on and do a podcast. Like, believe it or not, for your listeners, I'm very open to talk or for them to connect to further this. I'm certainly not a closed book, and I do try to, because I do think the change, Gareth, will come from the young coaches looking at doing different things differently as well. Like, I can't just go around at one club. I can only change one club, but it's like-minded coaches around the world, and there is a few that are like, okay, let's go and see if I can adopt some different ways of doing things. So if anybody would like to connect or contact, I'm on Facebook, obviously. You've got my email. Happy for you to share those things with anybody. Yeah, I'd like to contribute to a change.
Much appreciated. We'll stick those in the show notes. But hey, Declan, all the best.
And you.
Thanks so much for sticking through to the end of this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could hit the like or share button so we can get these amazing insights out to other like-minded coaches, athletes, and parents. Cheers.